I'm Dr. Kelly O.M.D, your board certified OB-GYN and healthcare executive, here to help you live your healthiest and wealthiest life. And the way that we do that is we focus on 5 things: our spiritual, physical, financial, mental, and emotional health and well-being. By doing 5 things: we meditate, journal, exercise, optimize our hormones, nutrition, and our sleep. And the way that we develop community is through these webinars, Ask Dr. Kelly O.M.D, which is on Mondays, our executive office hours, where you can actually bring in questions about things that are going on in your life, as well as what we call our affirmation room, which is a mastermind that we do every month. But tonight is not about Dr. Kelly O.M.D. It is about our special guest. Our special guest, who is an artist, and she is bringing us information about the Mothers of Gynecology. As I already told you, I am a gynecologist, but when I started reading and seeing her work, I knew that something needed to change and our history needed to be stated much further than what we learned in medical school or residency. This was a game changer for me as staff, and I know it will be a game changer for you. Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself and the top 3 things you want us to take away.
My name is Michelle Browder. I'm an artist, activist, and creator of the Mothers of Gynecology Monument. And I'm also an entrepreneur. The top 3 things that I would like for people to take away from this conversation is art, history, and medicine, and how it all intertwines and how we can change the narrative around what we're seeing in maternal health and just healthcare in general.
And I absolutely love that, because you know what, when we talk about being physicians, yes, there is the scientific part, but the art and the history of being a physician becomes so important, because when we don't know our history, we make the same mistakes. And when we don't have the art of it, that means that we do not cultivate experiences for each one of our patients. And I know that you're going to teach us about this, but you're going to show us how to bring that all together as well. So Michelle, go ahead and take it away.
Well, so yeah, I was brought to this work, the Mothers of Gynecology. I like to say that they guided me through my teenage years, leaving out of my teenage years. As a student at the Art Institute of Atlanta, I learned of these 3 girls in this infamous painting created by Robert Tom. And I'm sure you've seen it. It's of 3 girls, 3 Black girls, but they look like women. And they're surrounded by 3 doctors. It looks like a makeshift hospital. And I saw this particular postcard on my professor's desk, and I inquired about it. I came from a family of activists, Black Panthers and bootstrappers. And so to learn this history through the lens of a white man was very interesting to me. And so when I inquired about this painting, Robert Tom, I got to give it up to Robert Tom, who was the creator of this painting. You have seen it. I'm sure a lot of you, especially if you're a gynecologist, you've seen this painting of a young slave girl, 17 years old, and 2 others peering behind a sheet, and 3 doctors surrounding them. That would be J. Marion Sims, the father of, quote, modern gynecology, and then 2 other doctors that were assisting him in their grand rounds. And so basically I inquired about this piece, and when I asked my professor, he told me to go figure it out. He didn't have any time for me. And so I did. Over my summer break, I went to the Shrine of the Black Madonna that's in Atlanta, Georgia, to learn about this postcard and this painting. And I was really intrigued because the folks at the shrine, they teach you about the African diaspora, and they told me that these 3 girls were breeders. During the antebellum South, you would take Black women and objectify their bodies, but also they were used to breed to replenish the stock, if you will. After 1808, transatlantic slave trade is outlawed. So how are you going to replenish your stock? You got to have somebody breeding these babies. And so I went back to college. I never will forget. And I created my whole portfolio to honor these 3 girls. And I'm just 19 myself. And my professor said, it's too Black. You need to diversify. We're not going to allow you to graduate. And so needless to say, I dropped out of college because, my father has always said, prison or art, you got 2 choices. Either you're going to fight with your hands or you're going to do something positive with them. And so I decided to drop out of college. But from there, it leads me into the history and learning more about the history. I moved to Montgomery, Alabama in 2002. And at our state's capital stands J. Marion Sims, erected by MASA. The Medical Association for the state of Alabama erected him at our state's capital. And so I created a business called More Than Tours. And I was like, if he is the father of gynecology, I'm doing all this research of the iconography in our city. And I'm like, if he's the father of, quote, modern gynecology, where are the mothers? right? This is 2002 now, right?
Absolutely.
So we move from the art to the history
Mm,
and the torture that they suffered right here in Montgomery, Alabama. So every time you pick up that Sims retractor, that speculum that was once a spoon, that he went to the warehouse here in Montgomery, Alabama, bought the spoon, bent it so that he could use that device to open up the vaginal area and the cervix. That all came from Black women here, or Black girls here in Montgomery, Alabama.
mm,
And so it started me on a journey to not just learn history and recount it to people, but I noticed that my blood pressure would elevate every time I would drive by this monument, and then ride down the streets with Confederate names on them, and then drive by J. Marion Sims, his office, the space. It's still here in Montgomery. There's a placard outside there that talks about the J. Marion Sims. What he did, they didn't talk about the enslaved girls. They talked about the Empress of Eugenie. Never
mm.
talked about the torture of upwards to 23 girls. And so I made it my life's work to not just erect a monument. In 2020, we were all in the house talking to ourselves. I don't know, I ain't got no man. I ain't got no cheering. So I was in the house talking to myself. And I'm like, there's no other time that I will be able to just stop and engulf myself in the art and to create this monument. And so I created the Mothers of Gynecology. I tell the story of Anarcha, 17 years old, developed what is called the vesicovaginal fistula, the hole. And her hole was so severe that it spread from her bladder to her rectum.
Mm,
So a constant flow of urine and feces, and it just wasn't a pleasant smell for them. And they weren't, quote, fit for duty. So they weren't fit for reproduction. They weren't reproducing. And then you have Lucy, who was 18, and on her 12th surgery, she nearly died from her surgery. And so the one thing about J. Marion Sims is he actually wrote in his memoir, it's called The Story of My Life. I would encourage all of you OB-GYNs to go and read it. And he's
mhm,
talking about these experimentations like he was some hero, right? But he said that Lucy nearly died after her 12th surgery because she screamed in agonizing pain. And I don't know if you all know, but the story is that during this time that Black people weren't human, and that Black people had a higher tolerance for pain. So he dismissed it, but he thought she was going to die. And then you had Betsey, who was actually 16 years old. And so I put all of this knowledge that I found out about these three girls into a monument called the Mothers of Gynecology. So you have the art and the history that intertwines. And so from March of 21 to September 21, I created the monument. But then I said, we got to teach this history. I told my team, I was like, we need a conference. So we developed a conference. We brought in people from Dietrich Cooper Owens, who's medical bondage. We brought in Dr. Veronica Penmantel, who's the OB-GYN. We brought in Deliso Alford, who's also an historian and attorney for human rights. And we had this amazing conference. 125 people showed up. And so I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a convening in the actual space, downtown Montgomery, Alabama, where J. Marion Sims mutilated these bodies, where
mm,
he became famous. And I went to the space. I inquired. The gentleman that was there was the owner, and he was waiting on someone because they were getting ready to sell the building. To make a long story short, I bought the building. Because I'm like, I asked him if he knew what the history was in the space. I didn't go there for that. I went there to see if we could have this conference in his backyard, but I wind up actually buying the space. And when I asked him if he knew the history, he said, Miss Browder, that's the reason why we're trying to sell it. He
mm.
said, there's paranormal activity happening in the building. We don't want it no more. And so to make a long story short, y'all got to get the book for that one. But
Right.
here we are. We fast forward to medicine. We've had the building now. So that Robert Tom painting that I saw when I was 19 has been buried in the basement of the University of Michigan for the past 20 years because Black folk
Mm.
were feeling some type of way when they would walk by the painting. And so they hid it in the basement at the University of Michigan for 20 years
Wow.
until the mothers showed up again. And so to make a long story short, I was at a IHI, which is the Health Improvement Conference, and a
Mhm.
woman stepped up to me and she says, I'm from the University of Michigan, and she was OB-GYN, and I'm this amazing woman. This amazing woman. So I've been working 4.5 years to acquire this piece, right? Why, bring it out of the basement. And so on Mother's Day, we unveiled the painting
Beautiful.
at the site where these three girls were enslaved. And the site is not only going to be a museum that will speak to the history of medicine, that will speak to Black girls and Black bodies and Black men, women, and children, and how they were mutilated, all for healthcare and science, but it will also speak to resilience and hope, right? Through this painting. It's absolutely stunning. But then we are now in the process of purchasing, here's the medicine part. We need clinics. You know, after the Civil War is when, you know, Black people they didn't have access. So what did we do? We started our own clinics, but guess what they did? PWIs wouldn't allow you in to learn medicine. So what'd you do? You got these HBCUs, right?
Right.
For those that did allow you in, yeah, I'm not sure where you went, but now we have these doctors, but we went from 500 hospitals down to, and so we're going to open hopefully in 2026 of next year, the Mothers of Gynecology Clinical Museum. So you have the clinic on one side where you can learn about the history, and then the museum on the other side. I'm sorry, the clinic on one side where we can offer support for women in need of services and birthing people, of course. But we are about taking this art, history, and medicine to another level.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for when I text you or emailed you, answering the call and saying, yes, willing to do this. Thank you. So this started at age 19 years old. 19 years old. And to talk about, you know, when we have vision, and you are clearly making it plain so that we can all see and that we can all share in this history. And even as storied as it is, that it needs to be known and it needs to be said, like I said, not to repeat it again, right? But for us to learn from those women who shared their lives and their bodies with us, so that we could have many of the findings that we have in gynecology today. But it's so important for us to give them honor and respect and reverence for what they went through, that was not asked, that was not consented for, but they shared themselves and their body with us. So I just want to say thank you. Now I want to go back a little bit, because when you talk about, you know, hiding information so people don't feel comfortable, but now you're displaying the information. So tell us how you reverse the perspective on that, so that people, and what you want people to take away from what you're doing with the art, history, and the medicine.
Well, the first thing I did was after the mothers were erected and we had this amazing conference, next year will be our fifth one. Our fifth and last one for a year. We're going to take a hiatus. But I also took that same painting and I flipped it. And so now there's a new painting out there where it's the girls that are surrounding Sims in the 21st century, right? I recruited 2 other artists to help me with this, and we created a beautiful piece that now speaks to changing the narrative around healthcare and maternal health and science, and just what does that actually mean and how can we do that, right? Because art is such a powerful tool. I will tell you that when people see this piece, the new piece that was created, I've had white men to shed tears and say, now this hits a little different. I've had Black, yeah, and I've had Black people to say, well, now Michelle, you've just gone too far. I said, well, you know, we've been conditioned to see this thing in one particular way, but what if the shoe, you may feel a little pressure, isn't that what y'all say? Isn't that what you say as a doctor? When you going in there scraping around, you're gonna feel a little pressure. Well, this is the pressure, and we are. I always tell people when we come here, I have a business in you know, the more up campus is what we call the space where the mothers are housed, and I always tell people that we never believed in DEI, because I don't believe in it simply because if you don't have empathy, dignity, and respect for individuals, for people, for mankind, for humankind, how can you be effective in DEI work? You just can't. So do away with it. Do it. They were going to do it anyway. So, you know, so that's what we're hoping that people will see. You have to have empathy, dignity, and respect first. And then we're gonna add a D to that. We are in dire need, right? So now we're dire. We need dignity. If you have dignity as physicians, and I think that we will all be better for it.
Absolutely.
You know, and so yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
think that's really wonderful to change the perspective, change the view, right? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of, and when I think about it, we're always down here looking up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's
Mm-hmm.
change the view from up there, looking down or looking around and seeing what that
Yes.
feels like. What does it feel like to be the woman that's laying on the table, and
Yes.
everybody's looking and learning and everything like that? What does it feel like? And if you don't ask me, may I touch you here? This is what it's really
Yes.
going to feel like when I place this. That makes such a huge difference. If anybody on the line has any questions, feel free to start putting them in the chat, as well as if you wanted to raise your hand and come off mute, so that we can answer your questions. We're happy to do that with you today. And while you're getting your questions ready, Viva Lifers, you already know, I know y'all got some for us. While you're getting your questions ready, I'm just going to keep going with the conversation. You talked about, anytime I use gynecological instruments, I will be honest, I felt like somebody was in their kitchen creating these things. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
everything, when we talk about a spatula, I'm like, that came out of a kitchen. When we talk
Mm-hmm.
about, even when I describe a vacuum to help bring the baby, I mean, the forceps to help bring the baby out,
Mm-hmm.
I talk about like, it's like salad spoons, they go around. I mean, everything feels like it was out of the kitchen. So tell us about, what you learned with some of the retractors and the instruments that you have found in your historical review.
That it was made by white men, and that we are in the 21st century and we need to change that. So we need doctor in the room,
Yes.
for you to in the room along with several other people, to let's devise a new plan. We need to partner up with some artists, because I know there's one called the Nebula. Have you
Hmm.
seen this? It's like a duckbill almost.
Oh,
But
yes. I actually
yes,
have one. Yes.
yeah, yeah. But I think we could do better.
Hmm.
So there's ideas swirling around in my head. How can we make this less evasive and less painful? For me, it's painful. Can I just be
Yes.
real? It's a
Yeah.
painful situation, but it's a white man who made it. It's off of
Right.
black bodies, but he didn't care how they felt.
Mm.
And so basically, I think that we can revolutionize the way we administer healthcare by rethinking how we not only use these tools, but let's design some new ones. Let's be creative. And so that's where I am today. Alongside opening up a clinic, how can we also create new tools, that can not only save lives but be less invasive and painful for those of us that need it.
And I think it's, there's so much opportunity there. I mean, when you're in medical school and residency, there are always people looking for research projects and things like that. But a lot of times we think so academically about, oh, I need to write a research article or I need to do this study. But what about finding, and like you said, working with artists to bring forth a more gentle or a better way of evaluating the inside of the vagina, looking at the cervix,
Mhm.
because those are the two main things that you all are aware of, because you're awake, right?
Right,
But
right.
even one of the newer retractors, self-retaining retractors that I've been able to use, which for me it definitely seems more gentler for the patient. Um,
Hmm.
and then when they created that, that was a game changer in doing surgery for many people.
Hmm.
So being able to do that is just so important with that. Now, you mentioned the
Hmm.
fact that I'm presuming that you're raised, like, how are you funding all of this? How can we take action? Not only, how can we come see it? How are you funding this? And what do you need help with?
Ugh. When I tell you, now you're gonna make me cry because it's been a journey. And again, I come from a family, first Black prison chaplain appointed by George Wallace is my dad. I
Mm,
watched this man fund his own organization by opening up businesses. We had thrift stores. So I opened up my own business called More Than Tours, 10 years now in the making, where I bootstrapped this whole project in the beginning. But what do they say? If you build it, they will come. So now
mhm,
we're starting to get grants from Health Forward and Mellon, and now people are really starting to see the work and they want to support it. But also, we have an annual conference, and this will be our 5th year on next year. We're going to
mhm,
Birmingham, Alabama, and our conferences are our fundraisers, basically. And we're going to take people to Birmingham. We're going to sit with the 4 little girls. Actually, there's 5. We're going to do that history there. The University of Alabama. We're going to take a trip over to UAB and talk with doctors that were there. The dog bite doctors is what they call them, right? Who took care of Black people when they were savage savagely beaten and you know, bitten by these dogs. The midwifery history. So that's another thing. I wanted to have a conference where we bridge the gap with midwives, doulas, obstetrics, and doctors, PAs, and nurses. And when I tell you, Dr. Kelly, that everybody comes, no big eyes, no little U's. We had Dr. Sharon Malone. She was there, and just amongst people, right? We had, what is the lady's name from Karen Parsons from from the Fresh Prince. You know, we've had people, we've had, you know, the doula from the prison, you know, the prison doulas where, and everybody is just, there's no big eyes. We don't have titles. We just have ideas, and so we've, and it's been very, very uplifting to see. So Birmingham, Alabama is calling us. We're going to go to Birmingham. We'll do a day trip to Montgomery, but it has really been resourceful for us, and the communication, and not just communication, but the people that we meet, you know, and Dr. Veronica Pimentel, I know you probably know her, but she's been there every year. They come, they're like our professors, right? They're teaching and making sure that we get this knowledge, and because we have to take it back. We have to take back the position of, you know, gynecology and obstetrics. You have to, it's up to you all now, because they're closing hospitals, Medicaid, Medicare, they don't care now. And so there's another nugget that I've been kind of sitting on, because the space that that I bought was also the office of Dr. Lester Hill. Dr. Lester Hill's grandson actually went on, excuse me, his son went on to be an Alabama senator. Hill-Burton Act. So if you look up the Hill-Burton Act, you know, there's a whole nother medical history that has not been tapped. When you talk about free healthcare, he was a Dixiecrat. He ain't like black folk. They had their own separate but equal, but they also opened up clinics in rural counties that was supposed to be fair and equitable in offering healthcare to people. So, you know, there's so many things that we need to learn, and how we can bridge the gap between what they call the other side of the aisle with this administration, and how they're really trying to disrupt healthcare. We're trying to bridge the gap.
No, I think that's so important. And you know, you're right. We need to make sure that we're continuing to educate our future doctors, and we need to make sure that there's a pipeline for people that truly understand our history, and that can care for us in the way that we need to be cared for. We do have a couple of questions and comments, of course. I have a couple of thank you for doing this work and the work you continue to do. What was it about the original painting that moved you so much to quit school and make this your life's mission?
Basically I quit school because I've always had a temper when I was young, because, you know, integrated South, nigger was a word. Our teachers called us that when I was growing up. You talk black, so I was having to deal with my black folks too. But, you know, just being bullied, and I found myself in trouble a lot for defending myself. And my father, I never will forget, he came home and he said, Michelle, if you don't find how to use your hands to create something beautiful versus tearing something down, I'm going to see you in Tutwiler prison, which is one of the worst prisons. It's up until I think 2020, they stopped shackling women when they were giving birth, right? So this is the type of prison that was. And so I was like, nah, I'm not going there. And so I started using my art as a tool. But this painting basically led me to, I dropped out of college because I didn't want to go to prison. I was insulted. You know, it was one of those things where I can hear my father say prisoner art.
Yes.
But this painting, when I tell you all, you should make a trek here. I want every woman, every child, every girl to see it, because it's so well done. It's terribly beautiful. And I'm grateful for dropping out of college, because look what it has led me, right? Look,
Absolutely.
it has led us to furthering the knowledge on who we are. Number one, as Black women, as Black girls, as, you know, our bodies were objectified, but we were healers, you know, all in that. We're also teaching the healing and root doctors, and how we can take, you know, herbs to heal, and to set some of these infirmaries free. So I'm just grateful that I dropped out. Because
and you know what, there are there are many people that did not finish college that have made some significantly important impacts all over the world. And so your lived experience is the college degree. Your lived experience is the honorary doctorate. And I look forward to the day that somebody realized that an academic institution recognized that. I also look forward to the day that the American College of OB-GYNs. You have a couple of OB-GYN. I'm not the only OB-GYN on here, but American College of OB-GYNs recognizes your work as well. And, you know, spreads that information and educates all of us about this as well. So I look forward to that day. So you said next year you're having a conference.
Yes.
And do you have the dates for the conference yet? I know it's going to be in Birmingham.
Yes. Yes, we want you to fly into Birmingham,
Uh,
February 26th.
okay.
Full day on the 27th, learning the history with University of UAB, with Black doctors that were there in the 60s. And we have some amazing speakers. We're even trying to get Roy Wood Jr., because, you know, he's from Birmingham. He said he would do it, but we're trying to get him to sign on the bottom line.
Okay.
And Angela Davis, who was also a Black Panther. But, you know, the Black Panthers opened up their own clinics. I don't know if you know about this.
Yes,
There's only one
absolutely.
still. There's one still open in
Okay.
Seattle. So she's going to come and speak to us. But, and then on the 28th, we're going to do a day trip to Montgomery, Alabama, and spend time at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. Brian Stevenson is going to open up his doors for us. And then we'll have a convening on our grounds and then back to Birmingham. And so that would be February 26th through March 1st. It's going to be amazing. And when I tell you our conference it's not even a conference. I can't even describe.
Well, I cannot wait. I'm putting that down on the calendar. You know, our senator here in California, she actually is an OB-GYN. So I'll definitely make sure that this information gets transferred to her as well. Because I
Yes,
think
please.
we're definitely doing a lot of advancement here in California in regards to women's health and recognizing that there needs to be reparations for that. One last comment comes from one of our OB-GYNs. One thing that has changed in medical education is that medical students doing pelvic exams on patients while they are on anesthesia, they're no longer doing that. They used to line students up to do examinations on people that are asleep. And you know what, to be honest, although we didn't line up when I was in medical school, I don't know how many people realize that when they sign the consent and it says, you know, photos will be taken, exams will be done, things like that, that those things are actually happening. And making sure that we are being very clear about the consent process. And those of us that are in the OR being very clear about the dignity that you talked about, making sure that women continue to have their dignity, especially when they are not awake to fend for themselves or fight for themselves. I think that is a huge thing. So that being said, if you have any information, Cheryl, if you wanted us to drop the information in the chat, all of your information has gone out to our 3,000 persons that received this email. So I just want to let you know that your information has gone out from there. We will also be highlighting you on our YouTube channel as well as our social media pages. And we'll make sure that we tag you and your team as well. Let's see. Michelle, I am so honored to be part of the day ones who bear witness to the transformative nature of experiencing the herstory, HER story of the MOG. And that's from someone, Alfred. So thanks.
Tell you that there was 3 professors that I had brought in. She's one of them, legal Alfred. She's the law professor that did a lot of work around Henrietta Lacks.
Oh, yes.
Just recently. Yes, that's her. So, but can I just interject one thing?
Yes,
you
please.
all have my artwork. I've done the green book. You all have like a green journal. There's 2 of my pieces on there. The Mothers of Gynecology is on one, and then a piece that they asked me to create about 2 years ago. So if you still have those journals, they're on the front cover.
Actually, I do. And thank you for that reminder, because I believe that is the first. When I said, you know, I started reading about it, that was the first place. But bringing you back would be a very important, and also making it a part of our continuing medical education, where it's a requirement to read those articles and look at that information. I think will, you know, make a great difference in keeping the conversation going. The conversation going. So we will interject all of this. When you all see the replay, you will see the artwork and you will see the articles and everything like that associated with it. And Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much for educating, encouraging, and inspiring all of us to be a part of the movement that you have created so that we can not only know the history, but we can change the future for so many women. And that being said, Viva Lifers and guests, thank you for coming on. I'm Dr. Kelly O.M.D, your board certified OB-GYN and healthcare executive, here to help you live your healthiest and wealthiest life. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to Viva Life. All right. Thank you for being a part of the Viva Life experience. I'm Dr. Kelly O.M.D, board certified OB-GYN and healthcare executive. If you like what you heard, then please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. The reason why is because we are trying to educate, encourage, and inspire 1 million people to live their healthiest and wealthiest life. And this is what we're bringing you. We're bringing you educational videos. We're bringing you podcasts. We are bringing you webinars with subject matter experts, including myself, about the topics that affect you the most. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. We are everywhere. Have a wonderful day. Viva Life.